Hey there guys, and welcome back to another episode of RuneScape's Greatest Achievements. Or rather, in today's episode, you might as well consider this to be called RuneScape's Greatest Restrictions. Because the fact of the matter is, this man chose just about the most difficult journey you could undertake on OSRS. And fortunately for our viewing pleasure, our friend here has recorded just about his entire adventure from start to present. The individual that we'll be showcasing today is none other than a fellow creator that goes by the alias Lyfe. Lyfe began his journey back in August of the year 2020, where he had the ambitious goal of creating what they call an 807, or rather a reverse skiller. Mind you, in this case he would further restrict himself to 30 defense, with the goal of someday completing the set of Inquisitor. Now you might be asking yourself, what exactly is an 807? Well, I asked myself the same question and came across some interesting rune wiki links. To summarize an 807, it's basically an account that cannot train any non-combat skills, therefore maxing out their total level would result in the number 807. Now, with all that said, Lyfe would then take on the challenge for himself, inspired by a fellow creator going by the name UIM Slay Only. For authenticity, he also wanted his series to stand out from all the rest, and it just so happens that the Nightmare was released earlier in that year. Therefore, he would centralize his goals around achieving the set of Inquisitor, without trading, banking, or even non-combat stats, which in turn restricts most of the game itself. And as you can see here below, very early into the account he had already begun to pay homage to his goals, the Inquisitor. Very early into the build, Lyfe would knock out 30 defense, for the most part unquested due to heavy restrictions, and here he would remain for the foreseeable future. During the early stages of the account, Lyfe would have a hard time running around unlocking areas to try and finish off clue scrolls. And he would attempt to juggle these wherever he got the chance, because most of his best in slots would come from these very clues. Not to mention, most of the uniques would end up being dropped, as not only does he have bank restrictions, but he doesn't even have access to a POH. To make things even worse, Lyfe can't even store items in stash units, because he can't even build them in the first place. This fact alone would increase the length of each clue exponentially, and imagine that while clue juggling in itself. The caveat to this particular build is that you can't fully appreciate the grind for gear until you hit all of these different roadblocks in terms of skilling, quests, and even area restrictions. For example, the Amulet of Power upgrade would literally remain the all-round best in slot with the exception of different scenarios for the entirety of the build. Sure, he could get lucky on a hard clue, a 1 in 1.6k, but that's unlikely. The Warriors Guild would turn out to be one of, or if not the greatest unlock for the 807 build, as it provides some of the best in-slot food and potions. Not to mention, once Lyfe reaches 99 strength, he'll have a teleport directly to the guild, making the replenishment of food and stats that much more efficient. Lyfe would also be able to receive the Dragon Defender here, and fortunately for him, he can complete Priest in Peril, meaning that in the future he can also go for the Avernic and other uniques to follow suit. Now, following the unlock of the Warriors Guild also came with a few more perks along the way, such as sufficient food to deal with the Mage Arena 2 bosses. Unfortunately, Prayer and Restore potions were quite tough to come by, or rather a bit of a mission to get carried through TOB for those particular supplies, so this route was the way to go. Though it was a close fight, Lyfe actually managed to clutch a pseudo safe spot without prayer or food on his final boss. Now, not only would the MA2 cape be his best in slot, but it would also provide an increase on his max hits when he unlocks his trident, and the trident will be used for just about everything. This accomplishment ended up taking Lyfe around 5 to 6 hours of death spawns and juggling his gear to complete the cape, though it would turn out to be one of his greatest unlocks to date. Throughout the following months, Lyfe would attempt to knock out certain unlocks that would benefit him in the future, such as a Berserker ring. Fortunately for him, with the use of ults to pull aggression, he managed to knock this one out in a swift 40 odd kills. And in regards to his gear, I'm sure he's very glad he didn't go dry on this one. This man really had full adamant armor with a staff of fire, and at this stage of gameplay you literally couldn't get worse. Not to mention, unbeknownst to Lyfe, on the 6th of January 2021, he would be able to double his strength bonus by imbuing his Berserker ring through the release of Soul Wars. I feel like the greatest thing about this particular build is the thrill that you would get off such a minuscule upgrade in weaponry or armor, such as the Dragon Sword. And if you want to hear that enthusiasm, Lyfe actually has a channel of his own dedicated to this particular build, and I will leave his link in the description. Here we have one of what I call the top few goals of any account, 85 Slayer and the elusive Abyssal Whip, increasing Lyfe's offensive bonuses exponentially. I'd also consider this the turning point from mid to late game on this particular build, as the time actually gone into this is seemingly unfathomable. To follow suit, we have 87 Slayer and the Trident, and as I mentioned before, this would be Lyfe's most crucial offensive weapon for all raiding and bossing purposes. Lyfe had to jump through many hoops to get his inventory set up for the fight caves. The prayer potions and brews came from getting boosted through both Maiden and Bloat, then abandoning the raid, and Sanfew serums from Kraken. This was quite the accomplishment for Lyfe, as it was his first cape attempt with any kind of restrictions, which ended up taking him over 6 hours in the caves to achieve. And this would also subsequently turn out to be the best in slot cape for the duration of the account, up to the Inferno. Following the completion of 99 Attack, Lyfe went back to hunting clue scrolls, and ended up lucking out on ranger boots while grinding for the spiked manacles. And his luck would just continue on. Not soon thereafter, he would achieve the occult necklace, increasing damage output by 15% and making the nightmare grind that much more bearable. With Lyfe's newfound weaponry and gear, he would end up focusing his energy on his primary goal, the nightmare. And with all the tweaks and changes throughout the year, this would seem more troublesome to relearn the many different formats of the boss. Once Lyfe had the capability and confidence to camp the Nightmare, this is exactly what he did, and he would end up camping here until further changes would come between his goals. Following these changes to the drop table in mid-2021, Lyfe would divert his attention towards gearing up for the Chambers of Xeric and the Theatre of Blood. And he would start as seen below, by putting together the Brimstone Ring, which would turn out to be his best in slot for raids in general. Lyfe then had a group of his friends kindly assist him through both TOB and Chambers for further unlocks. And it's honestly amazing to see what such a restricted account can pull out of its arsenal, and this man is absurdly lucky to say the least. This luck would then carry on from TOB to Chambers, however to his dismay it would unfortunately be an item he can't even utilise due to his account restrictions. As of recently, Lyfe has achieved his Dragon Warhammer after a grueling 10,000 kill count. And as he plans to head back into the Nightmare, he'll be headed back with a vengeance, and some heavy offensive increases to go along with it. Today, Lyfe is still on the hunt for the final two pieces of Inquisitor through the Fasani's Nightmare. He's also managed to achieve both the pet and the egg for the transmog, which I do consider the most fitting for his particular build. As the game gets older, alongside the player base getting older, it's quite refreshing to see these new takes on interesting and restricted builds. Account restrictions have gone from something you'd class as a simple pure into so much more, such as area, stats, trading, and even banking restrictions. Various YouTubers over the years have brought these builds to the forefront of the community and molded these playstyles into the very game itself. Our friend here, Lyfe, is one of those individuals, so much so that there's even an RS wiki page dedicated to this particular build. And I would like to celebrate that dedication by getting this out to all of you guys. So show Lyfe and myself some support by dropping a like and a subscription. This really does go a long way in both awareness for these accomplishments and keeping the series moving in the right direction. Also, if you want to see what I get up to behind the scenes, head over to my Twitter at OSRS, which will be up on screen and linked in the description. Now, with all that said, let's sit back and watch Lyfe achieve one of his biggest goals to date, maxing out the stats of his build that he started so long ago. And this is the 807. As of the 17th of January 2022, Lyfe has now maxed his combat-only account. And though it's such a monumental achievement, I have a feeling that we'll see much more to come from this man in the future. If you feel like I did this man justice today, drop a comment down below. And while you're at it, leave me some suggestions on who you think we should cover next. Your continued support and enthusiasm really is what keeps the series alive to date, so make sure to do so. And finally, with all that said, I hope you all had a lovely day. And as always, take it easy.